The threat of China. This is going to be a bit of a different video, which it will be divided into two, and I will be discussing China in depth. I'll be going over a range of topics that are huge button issues in my opinion. Specifically, they will be divided into China's expansion and China's atrocities. I can't get into each little point of it, but I will try to link as much as I can in the description for you to go out and research for it to at least be a good base. Also, just because I am focusing on China does not mean that I think other countries do not do the same in certain fields. For example, I do know that the United States has been aggressive militarily, much like China. I just think that China is a big threat to humanity and that we have not seen such an evil force since the 30s. One final note before I begin is that it's important to stress I dislike the Chinese Communist Party. There's no ill intent towards these citizens. If anything, I feel bad for the people because they are suffering underneath tyranny. Now, with that said, let us begin with China's expansion. So I'll be breaking up this section into 2 points, which will have further subpoints within them. The first point is going to be China's military expansion. When we're talking about China's military expansion, there's no bigger point than seeing how China is making artificial islands in the South China Sea. These are points which will help China have a strong naval and air presence in case any wars were to break out. However, more importantly, these islands are a means of trade war. They will help get claims to trade rights and coerce their neighbors into giving up naval rights as well. They also use these outposts to help harass their neighbors and to bully them into submission. But beyond just this expansion, they're also threatening Taiwan. In a US congressional report, it warns of aggressive actions from China towards Taiwan. This is not new, however, as China has been acting this way since back in 2018 and even further back since then. Taiwan plays such a pivotal role in East Asia, however, in two different means. First is that Taiwan is being a symbolic blemish on the Chinese as they are the true China that escaped from the tyranny of the communists. Secondly, though, is that Taiwan sits among the busiest trade routes in the South China region. Losing Taiwan would mean that Korea and Japan are in bad positions if China wished to get more aggressive. If Taiwan were to crumble and fall underneath the Chinese rule, then what we would see is that we will have coercion become a key factor to be used against the United States' two greatest allies in Korea and Japan. Now, in a report released by the DoD on China's military power, we can see where China is exactly positioned. China plans to be at their peak by 2049, which will pursue many means to obtain this. This includes revising the international order. China wishes to return themselves to a position of strength, prosperity, and leadership on the world stage. If they are not already in their eyes as of right now, how far do they wish to push it into the future? The most worrying part about this report is how the People's Republic of China wishes to increase and play a more active role in advancing its foreign policy. What will the next 20 years hold for our world? Which this now leads us to the second section, which will be China's expansion economically. Going back to the report released by the DoD, it specifically talks about how China plans to use its economic development to support its military modernization. A bigger economy means more money to pump into its defense budget. Let us look at China's growing economy and see how they plan to fund their military. Looking at China's control of industries, we'll quickly go point by point. What we can see is how they produce about 97% of the United States antibiotics and exported 4.6 billion in agricultural goods to just the US alone. Also, China overall exports 16.2% of the world's total exports. China is also a huge force when it comes to producing, which they produced 22.5 trillion in 2019 per the World Bank in terms of the GDP. Now, all of this is ignoring the fact that China is in a lot of major companies in some way, shape, or form. For example, back in 2012, China's Wanda Group bought out AMC Entertainment for $2.6 billion. Another one is Reddit, a very popular social media site, has major investment coming from Tencent, another Chinese company. This Tencent company also owns or is heavily invested into many gaming companies such as Riot Games, owner of one of the most watched esports and played games in the world, as well as 40% ownership into Epic Games. There are other game companies that they also have their fingers into as well, which I would recommend looking into the article to see more about it. It is source number 14. You know what though? Here are a few more that Chinese companies own that matter. TikTok is owned by China, one of the biggest social media sites and valued at $100 billion. UMG, or Universal Music Group, is 10% owned by Tencent. You know, UMG, who owns the rights to Lady Gaga, Ariana Grande, Post Malone, and many more. Then you have Warner Music, Smithfield Foods, GE Appliances, Airbnb, the Brooklyn Nets, Motorola Mobility. Every single one has some investment or are owned by a Chinese company. There are also a lot more, but for the sake of brevity, we will stop here. So you might be asking, well, why is this all important? Well, it is key to note that these Chinese companies that are buying other sites also have to work with the government. It is a symbiotic relationship in that regard. So, if these Chinese companies own stakes into other companies that also are based in the United States or in Europe or in any other continent or country, then that means in regards, China does own, well, a piece of every single country or every single business. It's a bit hyperbolic, I know, but they are literally trying to own whole continents, for example. For example, China is looking towards Africa for an intense amount of resources. Back in 2018, China announced a $60 billion financial support for Africa. This was a promise he also made back in 2015 as well. It is clear that China has a very deep interest into developing Africa, and where the money is means there's often going to be a lot of power. Now, there are many claims that say it's not as much as others speculate, or that's not getting its return as of right now. But the point behind it is this. With China's intention stated earlier, and with the DoD report, there's an intent towards Africa, and China will undoubtedly get more invasive as the years come along into Africa's finances and well-being. Alright, so that sums up China's expansion as a whole. There's a lot more to get into, and I do have more details linked down in the description to read up on. However, to not spend 15 hours on one subject, which I could do, but for my own sanity and not to bore you, the viewer, that will be all for this video. The next video will focus on China's atrocities and how America can stand against them, which that should be up tomorrow. The things in this video will be relevant for the next video as well, so try to keep that in mind. As all the other videos, please do research yourself, however. Everything used in this video will be linked down below, but please research it yourself, because I may be biased, I might be trying to push a specific narrative, and who knows, maybe China is the good guy. Anyways, thank you for watching, and God bless America.